And the goal is really to have students envision themselves as part of a university campus and as part of a university culture and in partnership with researchers and faculty members on campus. So if you are interested in checking out more about what we tell you today, please feel free to go to the taylorinstitute.ucalgary.ca students page. There's a whole bunch of information on there, and also the CDCI at ucalgary.ca email is a place where if you have any questions about what we do, you can direct them there and then we will get back to you. So as I mentioned, really our goal is to get students involved and excited in undergraduate research and sort of reap all the benefits that come along with engaging in undergraduate research. And I know that the topic for your conference and the theme is all around innovation and discovery. And so I think this research tools and opportunities are really well aligned with those goals. So I like to sort of root my definition of undergraduate research in what the literature tells us important aspects of undergraduate research experiences are. And there's several really important aspects that I'd like just to highlight and touch on before we get into the programming that we offer in the college. So in terms of discovery and in terms of undergraduate research, there needs to be this element of new knowledge or new insights being gained, and that the students are acting as partners to develop and create knowledge. Students also really need to be part of authentic research practices so that the students are learning the tools and the techniques that researchers in the discipline that you are researching in would use. So you're using modern techniques to uncover and learn more about the discipline. Typically with research, students engage in a high level of collaboration. So the collaboration either between the research supervisor and the student or between students themselves, where students are working in a collaborative environment to have new discoveries and have creative insights. Research always, I shouldn't use the word always, typically has this aspect of iteration built into it, right? Where you're learning a little bit, you're revising, you're revamping, you're continuing this iterative process. And often this is the whole research process gets done sort of multiple times. You ask a question, you carry your methodologies, you see what you learn, and then you ask the question and continue that cycle. So you're continuing the iterative process of research and discovery. And then lastly, that the topic is broadly relevant so that it's of interest to a wider audience than just what might occur in a single classroom. There's some sense that the research has meaning to a broader world, has impacts that are relevant to a wider audience. So those are the things that are typically outlined as being really important for undergraduate students to have when they're involved in a research experience. And all of the programming that we do and all of the things that we design in terms of courses or experiences have aspects of these elements incorporated into them. All right, so I'm not sure how much convincing you need, but if you're not convinced, I want to encourage you to think about why you should get involved with undergraduate research and why research is really an amazing thing to get involved with. One aspect is that you really get to dive deep into a topic and learning all about that one aspect, and that sort of deep knowledge doesn't often happen in everything that we do, right? Sometimes you take introductory courses or you take courses and you're sort of getting a broad overview of a topic. Getting involved with research allows you to get really, really deep in one aspect of that topic and really develop your knowledge and contribute to knowledge in that area. I really value and love the aspect of undergraduate research around resilience and tolerance for challenges. So oftentimes in research, things don't go as planned and you have to sort of work hard to overcome and expect to not get to where you want to go in an easy way. And it's that aspect of resilience that I think is really important in students, and developing that in students I think is really important. I also really just love the critical thinking, problem solving, communications, and independent learning skills that students develop when they're doing research. And the collaborative nature and the way that research teams often work together to bring different perspectives and come to new insights is also really inspiring to see. Undergraduate research can also really help you to clarify career goals, understand a little bit more about what it is that you enjoy in your discipline, what it is you want to learn more about, and can help you develop sort of a sense of an identity in terms of your own discipline. So oftentimes, you know, I teach in the sciences. Oftentimes, students sort of see themselves as studying science when they're starting out on their undergraduate degree. But once you start doing research, then you start to really feel like a scientist, right? So it's that idea of your identity shifting as you engage in the disciplinary practices and explore the discipline through research. So those are reasons why I think it's really wonderful to get involved in research. I could go on and add many more in there, but I think that's sort of a highlight of the big ideas and why I think research is really important. So now I'd like to spend some time with my colleague, Joanne's going to jump in here too, just talking about the opportunities that we have through the CDCI to conduct undergraduate research, and for you to start thinking more broadly about how you might get involved in undergraduate research. So the three things that we're going to highlight today are our Research on Global Challenges course, Unit 401, which we'll talk briefly about. The Program for Undergraduate Research Experience, or PEER, the PEER program, which we'll touch on, and then course-based undergraduate research experiences, which we know happens on campus in lots of different places, including, I think many of you are in engineering. There's lots of opportunities for you to get involved in research in your courses themselves when they've been designed to have these kinds of research experiences in them. So I will just start off with talking a little bit about Global Challenges. So Global Challenges is a program that has been run out of the Taylor Institute and out of the CDCI for a few years now. And the goal is that students through their coursework are working collaboratively and in an interdisciplinary context to really tackle big problems. So that students are not just sort of, you know, reading a textbook and memorizing and regurgitating answers, that they're really engaging deeply with problems that exist in the world and looking to be part of solutions and sort of move the field or advance knowledge even by the tiniest amount forward on a particular problem. And so in the past, they've had a couple sort of themed problems. Last year, the problem was, you know, solving the global water crisis, and students in interdisciplinary groups work to find solutions to a global water crisis. This year, we're trying things a little bit differently. This year, we're going to have multiple streams that are looking at a whole bunch of different research problems in a global context that are big problems, and students will be working with a research supervisor who's a faculty member on campus to look at solutions to these problems and conduct meaningful, authentic research. And so if you're interested, go check out the webpage. You'll see that there's 4 streams for this winter. We're piloting this in the winter, and we will be running this again in the fall, so fall 2021, with new and different streams. And so students can kind of check out what those things look like, check out what the course looks like, and see how that whole program will run. I'm going to pass it off to Joanne to talk a little bit about PEER.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyla. Okay, so PEER, as Kyla mentioned, is one of the other programs that the CDCI runs. And PEER is an opportunity for students to conduct research over the spring and summer months and also be financially supported through the PEER program. There is often a misconception about research that it's reserved for medicine or it's reserved for students in science, but that's not the case, especially for PEER. We invite applications from all students from all backgrounds, and that includes engineering students, students from arts, and we also encourage interdisciplinary approaches. So we encourage students to think outside the box and consider how their research can be perhaps transcending the boundaries of their specific faculty. Next slide, please. All right, so as I mentioned, peer provides financial support up to $6,000 to University of Calgary undergraduates to conduct research specifically for 8, 12, or 16 weeks between May 1st and August 27th this year. The award amounts are $3,000 for 8 weeks, $4,500 for 12 weeks, and $6,000 for 16 weeks. So we just want to make a note for students who may not be that familiar with the peer program, that students are responsible for finding their own research supervisor. When you apply for a peer award, you need to submit an application, but you also need a research supervisor to support your application and submit a reference in order to be fully considered for a peer award. So students are responsible to find a supervisor, and that's usually done between like now and the application deadline, which is in early February. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's just a really brief overview of the peer awards timeline. So the first deadline students who want to submit to peer must be aware of is the student deadline, which is February 5th at 4 p.m. And once students submit, then supervisors need to go in and submit their portion of the application, and that's due on February 12th at 4 p.m. After supervisors submit and after all the applications have gone in, that's when adjudication begins. And adjudication runs for about 6 to 8 weeks, at which point successful applicants are notified, and that's approximately in late March to early April. Once applicants are notified, then they can start their 8, 12, or 16-week research project, starting between May 1st to August 27th, depending on how long their research term is. And of course, it's really important to note that if you're interested in applying for peer, the system is not open yet. You will have to wait probably a week or two before our system is open. So if you're interested, you can check our website in early December, and then you can start taking a look at the application. Next slide, please. Okay, so I thought it'd be great to just briefly touch upon steps to approaching a potential supervisor. And this isn't just restricted to peer. This is just if you're interested in undergraduate research and want to get involved a little bit more in connecting with your supervisors and connecting with undergraduate research in general. So the first step to approaching a potential supervisor is always about understanding research award expectations and criteria. Are you eligible for an award? Do you meet the minimum requirements in order to apply? Those are really important aspects that you need to be aware about before you start approaching a supervisor. Number 2 is, of course, determine your research goals. What is your aspirations? What are your goals, and how does conducting undergraduate research support you reaching those goals? Those are really important questions to ask yourself, and likely questions that supervisors are going to ask you as well. Number 3 is make a short list of supervisors to approach. Lots of students go through 10, 15, 20 supervisors before they find someone who says yes. So always be sure to have a number of people that you want to contact about talking about research and potentially working with them over the spring and summer. So here are just some suggestions on how you can create a short list. And that includes exploring the UCalgary directory and finding faculty members' web pages in your academic unit, reading about them in their web pages, and learning more about their research in general. As I said previously, you can find researchers beyond your academic unit. You can transcend the boundaries of your own faculty and search for researchers who are in separate faculties from your own. And of course, something that we would always recommend is talk to your course instructors, network with your peers, network with your graduate teaching assistants, talk to people so then they can help perhaps lead you to potential contacts that you can connect with regarding research. Number 4 is research the research supervisor. Read their publications, ask around, ask your department administration, is that research supervisor going on sabbatical soon? Or have they supervised undergraduates before? Those are important questions before you connect. And finally, of course, the last step is making that connection with a professional email expressing your interest. And then you've approached a potential supervisor, and then you can take it on from there and see what happens. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so for students in the peer awards program, if a student is awarded peer and they accept, and then therefore they are a peer recipient, peer students also have several other opportunities, and that includes the Research Skills Foundation's micro-credential badge, where if students attend a certain number of workshops throughout the peer term, they get this micro-credential that they can add onto their resume, their social media, etc. Peer students also are eligible to apply for the Graham Bell Travel Award, which provides financial support to student researchers traveling to conferences or symposiums to share their peer research findings. Of course, this year we have altered this award so students can apply if they're attending a virtual conference or symposium, but hopefully in future, we can continue to support students who are traveling in person to conferences. Next slide, please. All right, and finally, we thought it would be great just to share with you some examples of what previous peer engineering students have done. As you can see by the project titles here, there is a lot of variety in what engineering students have done. And of course, we have students from faculties all across campus, but as this is a webinar focused on engineering students, here are some project titles that might get you inspired in thinking about what you can do on your own in terms of undergraduate research. Great, thanks, Kyla. On to the next slide. And I'll pass it on to you.
Wonderful, thanks, Joanne. The last one that we want to talk about is keeping your eyes open for course-based undergraduate research experiences, which are often given the acronym CURES. I know in engineering, there has been lots of work done to have these kinds of course-based research experiences embedded into your curriculum. We've had lots of conversations with Dr. Stephen Bryant, who is part of your faculty and very keen on getting lots of these opportunities available for students. So look into his course, I think is called Research and Innovation or something. I can't remember. It's a 400 level course, but those are kind of the opportunities that you can have in a curricular sense as part of your degree program. So rather than doing this in the summer or doing this on your own time or part of a volunteer position, this can be part of your curriculum. So I encourage you to think about ways and classes that have these kinds of opportunities involved with them. And part of my mandate and my job is to spread and increase access for students to these kinds of cures. And so we work with instructors all over campus who are redesigning their courses to have a course-based research experience in them so that we can have lots of students reap the benefits of undergraduate research and gain from what occurs in terms of undergraduate research. And so we sort of aim for these 4 really big components in all the courses that we look at and design to have research experiences. So curiosity and discovery, the dissemination of the research is really important. So the research has to be shared beyond the walls of the classroom. And then the aspect of reflection. So as an experiential learning opportunity, bridging the gaps, bridging the process between the experiences you have and what you learn from those experiences through reflection. So those are the 3 big programs that we work with to help students have access to undergraduate research opportunities. And we would really like to encourage you to join and be a part of the undergraduate research opportunities that we have provided. Any questions? We have lots of time for conversation and questions, so we're very keen to hear what you're interested in and what you'd like to know more about from the CDCI team. Feel free to pop your questions in the chat, or if you want to just unmute yourself and ask, that works too.
Hi, Kayla and Joanne. Thank you so much for the presentation. Really enjoyed listening to both of you. I have a couple of specific questions. The first one being, do you need to be in a specific year for you to apply for these opportunities, for example, Pure? And is there a specific GPA requirement? And lastly, when you're approaching a supervisor, do you need to present them with your own sort of research idea, or could you tag along with something they're already working on? Or is there any sort of requirement for Pure around that? Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, so we'll start with the first one in terms of requirements, in terms of the year of program. So for global challenges, students have to be in second year or above. So we are asking that they've completed 30 units prior to enrolling in the course. So we're looking for those second year and above. For Pure, as long as you are a full-time undergraduate student who is returning in the fall to complete their studies, you are eligible. So we had lots of students apply, and many students were successful for Pure awards after their first year. The majority of Pure students are in their third year, but we also have students in their second and fourth year. As long as you are returning to finish your program after you've completed your Pure research, then you are eligible. Joanne, did you want to add anything to that?
No, that's perfect.
Okay, and then in terms of GPA requirements for Pure specifically, there is a minimum GPA requirement of 3.2. So you need to have a cumulative GPA of 3.2 or greater to be eligible for the Pure Awards. Global Challenges, for the most part, doesn't have a minimum GPA requirement. However, some of the research streams in Global Challenge you will notice have more specific requirements. So for example, we have a research stream on carbon capture, CO2 sequestration, and that one has a minimum GPA requirement. So that you have to read sort of the details of the different streams to be sure that you've met the GPA requirements. And then the last question around getting a research topic and whether or not you have to have a planned research project ready on the go to approach a research supervisor. So typically that research project is developed collaboratively with your research supervisor. So you might come to your research supervisor with a broad interest or a specific area that you're really fascinated with, but typically that proposal gets developed in collaboration with your supervisor. So your supervisor would help guide you through sort of what might be a reasonable question to explore, how might you explore that question. Research supervisors also sometimes have a project in mind that you might fit perfectly into, and so they have an ongoing research program, and they might have aspects of research that are sort of ready for an undergraduate researcher to fit into, and so you might be able to fit into a research portfolio in that sense as well. So it's really all about making the contact with the supervisor that has an area of interest that you are really keen on, and then starting the conversation, and then using the conversations with that supervisor to guide and develop the research proposal together. Man, anything to add?
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Chandini from the chat asked, what do the opportunities for first-year students in terms of research look like? And then for Cures, is there a list of courses that offer such experiences? And if you are in a certain faculty, is getting a supervisor from a different faculty allowed as well?
Okay, wonderful. So opportunities for first years for research, as I mentioned, Pure is totally open for first year students. So if you've completed your first year, you can do research in the summer after your first year. So those are opportunities. I'd also really encourage you to check out opportunities on your faculty or department website. Sometimes supervisors post opportunities in those areas as well, or there might be department or faculty specific awards that you can apply for. So do lots of investigating on those awards. I also would really recommend that you go to the research webpage and look under students, undergraduate students on the VPR, Vice President Research page. You'll see then there's lots of opportunities laid out there in terms of undergraduate research. Yeah, that's all I can think of right there. For the CEARS, there is not yet a list of courses that offer such experience, but there absolutely should be a list of courses that offer that experience. So that's a great idea, and I will definitely look at pulling something together so that students could quickly glance and see what opportunities are available. Thank you for that thought. And if you're from a certain faculty, is getting a supervisor from a different faculty allowed? If this is with respect to peer, yes, absolutely, that is allowed. Students very often work with supervisors in different faculties, and we've had, even engineering students do that in the past year or so. Did I miss anything there, Joanne? Last couple questions. Okay, what other questions do we have? Are CEARS only offered in spring or summer? Oh no, great question. So CEARS are course-based research experiences occur in courses that are in the fall and winter semesters. It's definitely not limited to spring summer research. We have, for example, we have two newly designed CEAR courses running right now that we worked over the summer to redesign and now are being implemented. That one happens to be in science and kinesiology, but faculty members run these in just regular academic courses. So a course that you might take in your second year, for example, might have a course-based research experience embedded in it. And that it's definitely not limited to sort of spring summer courses.
I'll just add to that quickly because CEAR and peer sound very, very similar. And I want to clarify that peers are only offered in spring/summer, the peer award specifically. But like Kyla said, CEAR's course-based undergraduate research experiences are offered year-round in the courses.
Yeah, good catch, Joanne. Yeah, UREs is a very common acronym for all the undergraduate research experiences that exist on campuses all over the place, and there are always variants of CEARs or peers or SUREs or what. Yes, it can get confusing.
From my
I
end,
have one more question.
oh, go on.
I wanted to know, in your experience when students are submitting applications, what are some things that sort of, make an application stand out or make an applicant successful? Any tips and tricks students can keep in mind?
Oh, wonderful question. One thing that I would really like to do is direct you to our information sessions that are going to be held in January. So if you go to the Taylor Institute site under Peer Awards, you'll see information on upcoming information sessions. And the January information sessions will really focus on what makes a strong application. Oh, thank you, Joanne, for linking that in the chat. What are characteristics? How are they evaluated? What should you do? Best practices, all of those wonderful things. So I can give you some quick pointers now, but I would really encourage you, if you're interested in peer and interested in applying, to come to those sessions. There's also a session on Thursday that will sort of look more at the getting ready to do this kind of research, tracking down a supervisor and doing all that kind of stuff. But really there are, oh geez, I wish I could pull up the rubric here, but there's several criteria that you're responsible for demonstrating excellence in for the peer awards. And key things are not using jargon, making sure your proposal is really easily understood by an audience that might not be disciplinary experts right in that field. So very likely your application will be evaluated by someone in engineering, but obviously engineering is very broad. And so you have to be careful with the language that you use, the accessibility of the language that you use. You want to highlight sort of the originality, why this is a unique, original, interesting project, what it's going to contribute, the impact. You want to highlight, what skills and strengths you bring to the research in terms of your research experiences or your research skills. What else would you suggest, Joanne?
Something that we emphasize a lot when developing an application for peer is collaboration with your supervisor. when students collaborate with their supervisor in creating their proposal or application, that's what makes it really stand out, because together you're able to really hone that application, bounce ideas off of each other, and really engage almost in the research process already by developing it together. So yeah, I would say for sure, connect with a supervisor and work with them and engage them in those conversations right away.
Other questions? Oh, I see one in the chat. Do you have to be present in person for research? International students that might not be able to come in person due to COVID. Yeah, so we have to definitely be conscious of COVID as we're going into the 2021 peer term. We don't know what the state will be in May for students either doing research on campus or not. We still have a lot of uncertainty about what that spring would look like. So it's a little bit hard to give a concrete answer in terms of whether or not remote research will be the primary mode of research or whether or not students will be present or on campus. But really this would be a conversation that you would want to have with any potential supervisors you were talking to. So as you're having conversations with supervisors, if you were an international student and there was a strong possibility that you would not be in Canada or on campus to do the research, have to establish whether or not that's okay with the supervisor and whether or not remote research and a project that can be done remotely would be acceptable. So pretty well, those are the kinds of conversations that you want to have with your supervisor to ensure you're both on the same page in terms of what the research will look like. And then obviously we have to be conscious of all the public health measures that are in place and all the rules and guidelines in place by the university before we can say anything for sure about the spring.
Could you maybe tell me more about the Research Skills Foundation micro-credentials match, if that's all right? So what is it used for? What's the process?
Yeah, for sure. So the Research Skills micro-credential is a new badge. So it's a recognition of work that occurs through the peer research term. So obviously as part of the peer research, you're doing your research, spending, it's a full-time commitment. So you're spending on average about 35 hours a week conducting research on your discipline. But the program itself has additional add-on workshops and opportunities for students to get together and think about skills that they're developing and collaborate with other students in the peer program. So we offer a whole series of workshops throughout the summer. And for students that attend at least 4 of those workshops and write a short reflection on what they gained from their attendance and participation in those workshops, they can then submit those reflections in this framework to earn this micro-credential. And I know there's lots of talk on campus about micro-credentials, and this is kind of just a little bit of recognition that you have developed some of these research skills and articulated those research skills in this professional context. And so those badges they're kind of neat. They travel with you in a virtual way, so you can put them on your LinkedIn page or you can put them on your CV. And it's just a little bit of an added recognition of, yes, you got a peer award, which is fabulous, but you also did all these extra things to really showcase and develop the skills in terms of research skills foundations.
Right. Thank you so much. So Stephen Nelson also asked, what are the topics or what needs to be the criteria in a proposal? And would there be the standard access to U of C subsidized software?
Okay, yes. So, so in terms of the topics, so we walked through 3 different programs that the College of Discovery, Creativity, and Innovation has and offers, one of which was Pure. And I think that's maybe what you're getting at here with this idea of a proposal. So the Program for Undergraduate Research Experience, or Pure, is a paid studentship position that you can apply for with a supervisor and a proposal. So the criteria for the proposal you can check out if you go to the Taylor Institute site for the peer awards. All the criteria are listed there along with the rubrics that you have to that you would be adjudicated based on. So you can kind of see what goes into that proposal in a little bit more detail there. And then I think, yes, once you are in there, you should have access to the U of C software. But that would be, yeah, again, a question for your supervisor in terms of your access to U of C to software and what your supervisor is able to provide.
And then Chandini asked, as for the Pure Awards, if the funds awarded are not enough for a research idea, is there any additional support that is given?
So is this referring to sort of materials or supplies that you might need to do to actually conduct the research itself?
Yes.
Yeah, so the peer award goes to support you. So you get the payment for the peer award. And if there were resources that were required to do the research itself, typically your supervisor takes on those costs. So, you know, if there was lab materials or whatever was needed to do the research, typically the supervisors take on that additional cost. So have to, the supervisor, as you're developing your proposal, you might need to have sort of a budget in mind in terms of the materials and methods that you would have, or materials and supplies you'd have to do to actually conduct the research, because the intention is that the award is payment for you, the student, and not intended to cover research method, research supplies and materials. Mm-hmm. Any other questions about what we do at the CDCI?
Stephen Nelson asked, would I have to be a current student? He's an EIT and owns a shop to conduct testing.
Yeah, do you want to take this one? I've been going on a lot.
Yeah, sure. I can take this one on. Yeah, so for the peer awards and for really most of the programs that are run through the CDCI, you do have to be a current University of Calgary undergraduate student. The programs that are through the CDI are targeted to support undergraduate research and to expand the opportunities that students have while they are in their University of Calgary career.
Wonderful. Well,
I think that's it for the questions, it seems like.
yeah.
So thank you so much, Dr. Flanagan and Ms. Fung, for this amazing look into the innovation and research ecosystem at the University of Calgary. Yeah, thank you so much again. And I will be putting the poll up as well for anyone who's in the chat currently to just follow up on what they would like to see further in terms of ASEC news and ASEC activities, I guess. As well, here are some of the additional ASEC activities that we have going on, if you would like to see next. All right, I think the poll should be good to go, so I'll end the polling now. And yeah, thank you so much everyone for coming, and have a good evening.